everyone, this is Yohan, and today we're gonna make the everyday convertible backpack. This is a fun and functional backpack for everyday use, really. The size is great, not too large nor too small. The finished measurements are about 10 inches wide at the bottom part and 10 inches tall and 5 inches deep. This should fit all of your necessary essentials for when you are out and about, for working, maybe commuting, errands, hiking, or just strolling at the park with your kids. It comes with a front zipper pocket, 2 side slip pockets. In the interior, there is a zipper pocket and 2 slip pockets. Of course, the straps are adjustable, and you also have the option to make this a shoulder bag. For the fabric, you can use canvas, denim, home decor, any mid to mid heavyweight fabric can be used for this project. This time I use a wax canvas. For the lining fabric, a lightweight cotton quilting fabric is recommended here, or you can also use any lightweight nylon or polyester type lining fabric. Now for the pattern, I have the free version that you can download at yohansewingstudio.com, which include the templates and cutting instructions. I'm also working on the premium pattern of this project, which will include the written instructions, all the templates, also the rectangular panels. They will be in the separate files, so you can choose whether or not to print out the rectangular panels or just follow through with the cutting instructions, and license to sell the finished product. And that will be available for purchase within a week or 2. So if you're interested on that, you can keep an eye out on my website, yohansewingstudio.com, or you can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so I can keep you updated there. Alright guys, let's jump straight into the tutorial and please enjoy. Alright guys, the first thing that we're gonna do is to print out and assemble the pattern pieces. I recommend to first print the first page and then test the square just to make sure that your printer is in proper setting. If you're a regular here, you may be very familiar on how to assemble the pattern pieces. So we're gonna line up the alphabet ellipse. Make sure to match the letter there. So you may fold back or cut one of the page's margin and then slide the other page behind it. Make sure that all the lines are aligned and there is no overlapping there, and then tape to secure them. So you want to tile from the long sides first, and if you don't see any alphabet ellipse, that means you don't need to tile that particular pattern. For the main body panel, you will need to join page 1, 2, and 5, 6. So we're gonna do this the same way. So first you want to cut or fold back one of the page's margin and then slide the other page behind it. Make sure to match the alphabet ellipse and all the lines, and there you go. So all the seam allowances are included in the pattern, so you can cut each template as it is. Once you're done cutting, make sure to immediately snip the notches right away. So from the main body panel, you want to cut 2 pieces from the exterior fabric and 2 pieces from the lining fabric. Mark the top and bottom center point of each main body panel. So simply fold this in half lengthwise, matching all the edges, and then slip just a little notch right on the center fold, both at the top and at the bottom as well. You can also just mark it with fabric marker instead. So you want to do this for all the main body panels, the exterior and the lining as well. Now we're going to work on the front exterior pocket. So here is the zipper. First we're going to sew the zipper tabs on both ends of the zipper. Lay the lining panel with the right side facing up, and then you want to lay the zipper wrong side down. Match the end of the zipper with the edges of the zipper tab, and then take the exterior fabric and lay that right side down. Make sure to match all the edges and then stitch with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now flip the zipper tabs towards the right side, finger press to make everything nice and neat, and then top stitch. Now you can repeat the same to the opposite side. Mark the center point of the zipper, so fold this in half just like that, and then snip a little notch just like so on both sides, or again feel free to use fabric marker instead. Now take the pocket exterior, snip the center fold notches along the top and the bottom, and make sure to do the same for the pocket lining panels as well. Now take the zipper, make sure to unzip your zipper, By the way, you want to install this with the start of the zipper at your left hand side. So lay the zipper right side down. So first you want to match the center point of the zipper with the top center point of the pocket exterior panel, and then pin. Match the ends of the zipper with the bottom of the pocket panel, and then pin. Repeat the same to the opposite side, and then you want to continue pinning all around except of the top corners. Now we're gonna hand baste the top corners there. So first you wanna snip the edges of the zipper a little bit to make the fabric relax. About 1/8 of an inch. Now grab a hand sewing needle and the thread, and you wanna sew running stitches along the curved edge. You wanna stitch about 1/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the zipper tape. So you should end up with something like this. Once everything is secured, you wanna stitch the zipper in place with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Lay the pocket exterior panel right side up. Now take one of the pocket lining piece and you want to lay that right side down. First you want to match the top center point notch and then pin. And while you're doing this, make sure that the other side of the zipper tape is out of the way. Match the bottom center point notch as well and then pin. And then you want to continue pinning the sides and the top edge. And once everything is secured, stitch along the sides and the top with about scant 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Trim the seam allowances down to about 1/8 of an inch. I only did it around the corners, but I recommend to just trim off the entire seam allowances, especially if your fabric is very thick. This will help to reduce the bulk. Now through the bottom opening, you wanna turn the pocket panel right side out. Poke the corners. I like using my Hera marker here. You can also use a point turner or chopstick. Make sure to finger press along the edges to make everything nice and neat, and then top stitch. Now take the remaining lining panel and you want to lay that right side up. And we're going to pin the opposite side of the zipper tape. So the zipper should be facing wrong side down. Again, you want to match the top center point and then pin, and then match the bottom side edge and then pin, and then continue pinning all around. Again, you want to hand baste the top corners, and once everything is secured, go ahead and stitch with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So your pocket panel should look just like this. Now take one of the exterior panel, fold the fabric in half lengthwise so that you can get the centerfold crease. Okay, now you can take the pocket panel and you wanna lay it out with the exterior side up. First you wanna match the bottom center notch of the pocket panel with the bottom center notch of the exterior panel and then pin. Next, you want to match the top center point notch of the pocket with the centerfold crease of the main body panel. And then you want to grab a pin, and then as you're pinning this, you want to make sure that you're tucking the raw edges towards the bottom so it will be sitting underneath the lining fabric. Alright, so we're gonna continue pinning. You can pop a few more pins to hold this pocket in place. So just like before, make sure to push the raw edges towards the lining so that it will be hidden from the exterior. And of course, as you're pinning, make sure that everything is looking nice and symmetrical. Once everything is secured, you want to stitch on the lining side, just along the zipper area. Don't worry about the zipper tabs at this point. Now with the presser foot, you may not be able to start exactly at the starting point of the zipper, and that is totally fine. I actually managed to start at about 3/4 of an inch from the start of the zipper. So at about 1/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the lining. Now as you sew, just make sure that the raw edges again is tucked underneath the lining fabric so that it will be hidden from the exterior. And as you get to the end, again, you may not be able to reach all the way down, and that is also totally fine. So just go as further as you can go with your presser foot. Alright, our pocket is almost done. Now we're gonna take care of the lower part area where the zipper tab is, which wasn't stitched through. Now you wanna fold the bottom part of the zipper tab towards the wrong side, all the way in, just like that, and then pin, and then you wanna repeat the same to the opposite side. Now we're gonna finish attaching the pocket by hand stitching the side lower part. So you just wanna do slip stitches or invisible stitches to finish this off. So all you need to do is to grab a portion of the zipper or zipper tab, pull the thread through, and then grab a portion of the main body panel and then pull the thread through and continue stitching until you get to the bottom. So here I've already hand stitched both sides of the bottom part of my pocket, looking very good. Now you can base stitch along the bottom edge of the pocket with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And there you go guys, our front pocket is done. Now we're gonna work on the back exterior panel. So you wanna have the main body right side facing up. So first thing first, you wanna measure 1 inch from the top center point. Then you can draw a straight line with disappearing fabric marker there. Now from that point, you wanna go ahead and draw a straight line across. So make sure that your line is straight since the top edge of the main body is curved. Now cut a piece of webbing and then you want to attach that to a D-ring. Now to hold this temporarily, you can use a little bit of glue. I recommend to use fabric basting glue for that, but I happen to run out of my basting glue, so I just use Elmer's glue here. A little bit goes a long way. And we're gonna position this tab right on the center, so the edge of the D-ring should be sitting on the top edge of the main body panel, and then stitch at about 1/4 inch from the edge. Now take a piece of webbing about 9 inches long. Position the webbing about 1 inch from the top center point of the main body panel. So you want to use the straight line that you drew earlier as a guide. Make sure that everything is nice and straight, and then you can pin to secure it. Once you've done that, stitch along the edges of the webbing about 1/8 inch or so. As you saw, when you get to the D-ring tab area, you may want to backstitch to add extra reinforcement. Next, we're gonna work on the lower strap connectors. So grab another D-ring and then attach the webbing just like that, and then stitch as close as you can to the D-ring. Position the strap connector about 1 inch from the side edge, and have about 1/4 inch or so overhang at the bottom, just like that. Pin to secure this and then stitch with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's it guys, the back exterior panel is done. Now let's work on the strap. So we're gonna make 2 adjustable straps. For each strap you will need 2 swivel hooks and a adjustable strap slider. Hold the slider right side up, and with the right side facing up, you wanna insert one of the end of the strap from the wrong side up to the right side and then back to the wrong side. Have about 1 inch of clearance there, and then stitch a straight line about 1/4 inch from the edge. Make sure to sew back and forth a few times to secure everything. Now you can add another line of stitching about 3/8 inch from the previous line. Now let's set this aside. And then take the remaining end of the strap, insert 1 swivel hook, pull that through about halfway, make sure that the head is facing outside, just like that. Now take the slider and then you wanna feed the end of the strap from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. And of course the strap should be facing right side up. Pull the strap through. Make sure that there is no twist, and this is how your strap should look like at this point. Now let's attach the remaining swivel hook to the end of the strap, and you want to have about 1.5 inch clearance. And just like before, you want to stitch a couple of lines parallel to secure the webbing. Now we're gonna work on the interior. So first let's sew the slip pockets. So lay the pocket panels right sides together and stitch along the top edge with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you wanna press the seams open, fold the wrong sides together, press it again, and top stitch. Now lay the pocket panel on the right side of the main body panel, matching the sides and the bottom edges, and then pin and then stitch along the sides and the bottom. Now fold this in half lengthwise so that you can get the center point crease, and then stitch along the center fold of the pocket to divide the pocket into two. Now we're gonna work on the zipper pocket, which will be installed to the back interior panel. So on the wrong side of the pocket panel, you wanna draw the template. So you wanna draw a 7 by half an inch rectangle, about 1.5 inch down from the top edge of the pocket panel. As usual, you wanna draw the line on the center and the little corner triangles, just like shown on the screen right now. Now position the zipper pocket panel on the right side of the back interior panel with the right side facing down, about 2 inches down from the top center point of the main body panel. And of course, you want to center position, secure with some pins, and then stitch along the outline of the template. Cut through the center line and the corner triangles. Just be careful not to cut through the stitches as you get to the corners. Once you've done that, you wanna flip the pocket to the wrong side. Finger press to neaten everything. Apply some basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape. Stitch back and forth at the start of the zipper to keep it closed. Peel the top paper layer off the basting tape. Now position the template on top of the zipper. Make sure to center the position. Finger press so that the basting tape will be sticking to the fabric, and then stitch all around the edges of the template to secure the zipper. Once you've done that, you wanna trim off any excess zipper. Now bring the bottom edge of the pocket towards the top of the pocket, basically folding it in half. Pop a couple of pins to secure it, and then stitch the sides and the top edges with about 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And make sure to get the main panel out of the way when you sew the pocket. And that's it, guys. The zipper pocket is done. Now apply the foam stabilizer on the wrong side of the back interior panel, which is with the zipper pocket. And you want to apply according to the manufacturer's instructions, but be mindful with the zipper. Make sure you won't accidentally press over it so that it won't be ruined. Now we're gonna work on the gusset panel. So we will start with the side gusset. So first let's install the pocket. So pin the pocket exterior and the lining with the right side spacing, and then stitch along the top with 1/4 an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you wanna press the seams open, flip the pocket to the right side. You may wanna press or finger press the top edge again, and then top stitch. Now lay the pocket panel on the right side of the side gusset panel with the wrong side facing down, matching the sides and the bottom edges. Pin to secure it, and then stitch along the sides and the bottom with 1/4 an inch seam allowance. Now repeat to attach the remaining pocket panel to the remaining side gusset panel. Now let's work on the zipper gusset. So prepare the zipper and the zipper panels. So we're gonna start by installing the front zipper panel, which is the wider panel. So let's make the zipper sandwich. Lay the lining panel right side up, and then apply a basting tape along the top edges. Now take the zipper and you wanna lay that right side up, matching the edges of the zipper, of course. Apply basting tape along the edges of the zipper. Now take the exterior panel and lay that right side down. Finger press to make sure everything is nice and secured, and then stitch with 1/4 an inch seam allowance. Now let's flip the zipper to the right side. Finger press along the seams to make sure everything is nice and flat, and then top stitch. Now you want to repeat to install the back zipper panel to the opposite side of the zipper exactly the same way. Now let's flip this to the right side. Make sure to finger press the seams, both the exterior and the interior. Now if you're having a hard time to keep your fabric flat, you can pop a couple of pins along the edges there. This will help prevent the fabric from shifting too much. So once everything is secured, you wanna top stitch. Alright, so we want this zipper panel to measure 4 inches wide. So there should be a little bit of excess fabric. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna trim that off. So we're gonna start from the back side here. So you wanna trim off very little, like about 1/8 of an inch or so, just to straighten up the edges. And then from here, you wanna measure 4 inches and then trim the front side. So your zipper gusset should measure 12.5 inches long and 4 inches wide. Now go ahead and base stitch all around with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we're gonna work on the D-ring tabs for the shoulder strap. So first you wanna measure and mark 1/4 inch from the short sides of the D-ring tab panel. Now fold towards the wrong side using that 1/4 inch marking line as your guide. Now depending on your fabric, you can either press with an iron or just finger press, or you can use basting glue to temporarily hold the folds. And you want to repeat the same to the opposite side. Next, on the wrong side, you want to draw a straight line on the center lengthwise, just like that. And then fold the long sides towards the center line and then press. You can also use fabric basting glue or use sewing clip just to hold on to the fold. And then stitch all around the edges. And now attach the D-ring just like that. And then from the bottom edge you want to measure 3/8 inch and then put a little mark right on the center. And then from here you want to measure another 3/8 inch and then mark it right on the center as well. So these dot marks will be where we're gonna install the rivets. Now you can go ahead and punch the hole right on those two marks. Now we're gonna install this on the front side of the zipper panel, which is the wider side. So what you wanna do, you wanna measure 1.5 inch from the side and 1 inch from the front and put a little mark there, just like that. Now you wanna punch a hole right on that mark, and this is where we're gonna install our first rivet. So take the rivet, insert that into the lower hole of the D-ring tab, just like that, and then insert that into the hole that we just punched. You can do this the other way around if you want, doesn't matter I think. Now take the cap and place that on the reverse side and then go ahead and install your rivet according to the manufacturer's instructions. Okay, next on the same exact spot of the upper hole, you wanna punch a hole to go through the zipper panel and then install the second rivet on that hole. Now repeat to install the D-ring tab to the opposite side exactly the same way. Now we're gonna attach the zipper gusset with the side gusset. Lay one side gusset lining right side up and then lay the zipper gusset right side up. Match the side edge of the zipper gusset with the top edge of the side gusset. Now you want to take the side gusset exterior panel and lay that right side down. Secure with some sewing clips and then stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now you want to flip this to the right side. Press or finger press depending on your fabric to make the seams nice and flat, and then top stitch. Repeat the same to the opposite side. Now you can base stitch all along the edges of the side panels. Now we're gonna attach the bottom gusset. On the wrong side of the lining panel, you wanna make sure to apply foam stabilizer. Center the position. Lay the bottom lining gusset with the right side facing up. Now take the side gusset and lay that wrong side down. Make sure to match the bottom edge of the side gusset with the edge of the bottom lining. Now take the bottom gusset exterior and lay that right side down. Pin to secure the sandwich and then stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you want to reduce the bulk, you can trim off the seam allowances down to 1/4 inch or so. Flip to the right side and then press and then top stitch. Alright, next with the right side facing, you want to bring the bottom exterior towards the edge of the side panel and then pin and then flip to the wrong side. Now you want to bring the bottom lining towards the edge and then you can unpin and repin it again, match all the edges. And once everything is secured, you want to stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you've done that, you want to turn this to the right side. So you should end up with something like a loop. Now let's press the seams and then top stitch. Pin the side edges of the bottom and then base stitch with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's it guys, the gusset panel is done. Okay, next we're gonna assemble the main body panels. So lay the front exterior and front lining with the wrong sides facing. match the notches, and then pin all around, and then base stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you want to repeat the same to the back panels. Now if there is any excess webbing, you can go ahead and trim those off so that everything will be nice and even. Okay, now we're gonna assemble the backpack. First, we need to mark the top and bottom center point of the gusset panel. So you want to fold the gusset, matching the side seams there, and then mark or snip a notch along the top center fold, both sides, also the bottom as well. And you want to snip the notches at about 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch max from the edge. Now it's time to assemble the bag. So here I've got a front panel facing right side up. Match the front center point notch of the zipper panel with the top center point notch of the front panel with the right sides facing, of course, and then pin. And then match the bottom center point of the gusset and the front panel, right sides together, of course, and then pin. Now match the side notch with the side seam here, just like that, and then pin. And you want to repeat the same to the opposite side. Now that you've already matched all the 4 points, you want to continue pinning all around except of the corners. And as usual, we're gonna hand base the corners. So I'm gonna start from the upper corners. Snip the edges of the zipper tape about 1/8 inch. This will help the fabric to relax and able to lay flat. Grab a hand sewing needle and a thread, and then hand base along the corner there with simple running stitches. And if you can't get all the way to the corner, that's totally fine. The gusset panel is purposely designed to be a slight smaller to give you wiggle room if there is a little bit of mistake. Once you've secured the gusset, you want to stitch all around with 3/8 inch seam allowance. So with the gusset facing up, starting somewhere around the middle side, as you get to the corner, pay attention to your fabric. Make sure that the fabric lays flat. As you can see here, hand basting the corner area really helps to make stitching this section much easier. Trim off any excess fabric around the corners. Alright, so you should end up with something like this. Next, we're gonna work the same to attach the back panel. So you wanna lay the back panel with the exterior side up. Unzip the zipper all the way. Now lay the gusset with the right side facing down, and just like before, you wanna pin the center points and then pin all around and then hand base the corners. And once you've done that, with the gusset facing up, you wanna stitch all around with 3/8 inch seam allowance. As you pass through the D-ring tab, make sure to pull the D-ring out of the way. Now let's trim off all the excess fabric at the corners. And then we're gonna finish this backpack by binding the seam allowances using bias tape. This is a pre-made double fold bias tape, 1/2 inch wide. Open the fold and then match the edges of the fold with the raw edges, just like that. And then stitch this in place about 1/4 inch from the edge. When you sew, you wanna start about a couple of inches away from the edge of the binding, so that you will have enough fabric to overlap in order to join the ends of the binding later. So you want to continue stitching all around, and as you get closer to where you start, you want to stop about 3 to 4 inches away from the starting point. Now you want to overlap the binding strip by 3/8 inch or so. So I'm just going to eyeball it. You can certainly measure and mark it beforehand. Now let's open all the folds and then lay the ends of the strip right sides together just like that, and then stitch in place. Use 3/8 inch seam allowance or the same as the overlapping width. Finger press the seams open, and then you want to continue stitching, picking up from where you left off up to the starting point. Now let's fold the binding over to the opposite side so that it will be hugging the raw edges, and then secure with some clips. Now you can finish the binding with your favorite method. My preferred method is with hand stitching. This will give you a nice and clean finish. So you want to perform slip stitches, simply alternating picking the binding and then the fabric. When you pick the fabric though, make sure that you don't go all the way to the exterior fabric. So just pick the lining fabric. Alright guys, once you've done binding the raw edges, your backpack is pretty much done. You can now turn this right side out, poke all the corners, make them nice and neat. If necessary, depending on your fabric, you may want to give this a final pressing. Attach the straps and voila! So thank you so much for watching guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and until next time, goodbye!